God, oh mother Russia, the guilt. I think it all began around 1836. I'd been hanging around egg shops for about a year. I don't know why. Perhaps it was because Dad was a doctor. And after school, as kids, used to play marbles underneath the operating table where he worked. I can still hear him screaming, "Get out from under my feet!" Funny, that pile of feet always under his operating table. I don't think Dad specialized in chiropody. Anyway, there we were, with Dad chopping away like mad above us. This probably developed my X-interest, axophilia. I think that's what it's called in psychiatric circles. It's curable, but you need a therapist with patience of Job and a great deal of time and love, plus miles and miles of leather restraining harness. Oh God, the guilt, the axe, and the harness. Where was I? Oh yes, I think the gambling began then too. Piotr, he was my closest friend at the time. He would say, "Bet the next one the lesser." I reply, "How much?" In those days it was even money. Well, it had either to be a left or a right foot. Mother would sit in the corner wiping the blood off Dad's chopper with her petticoat, knitting, or with her head stuck in the latest pushkin. She was no intellectual. How I hated her. God, the guilt, the axe, the hardness, the feet, and the gambling. All I seem to remember now is the screams as Dad's patients were dragged in. My father was a very fast diagnostician. What he lacked in bedside manner, he more than made up for with the speed with which he dispensed the cause of another human being's misery. "Chronic bullet wounds to the lower abdomen," he'd say in the quiet, confident way of his, or "acute bayoneting to the upper torso." Then a foot would plummet to the ground beside me. In spite of this, I had a very unhappy childhood. Dad wanted me to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an axeman or an executioner, at least something in the axe business. Suddenly the serenity of normal family life ended when a patient demanded a second opinion and shot Dad dead before he could chop the poor wretch's foot off. We found out later that the man had only come for something to stop him shooting the Tsar. Dad had this huge vial of anti-regicidal cream in his surgery. It was brilliant blue and very popular. I think he dispensed quite a lot of it in the days before purges were invented. I was sent to St. Petersburg. God, it was cold. That was when I started to think very seriously about God and his purpose and the meaning of life. As I got off the train and felt the cold, "God, it's cold," I exhaled. standing on the station platform wearing nothing but a rat-skin shirt and a left shoe. For some reason, Dad had had a run of left feet amputations the previous week. Consequently, we had cupboards full of left shoes. You couldn't move for left shoes, but very bare in the right foot department. Conversely, we were always very well clothed. Dad would anesthetize and skin the rats that ran around his surgery and suture the furs together. I had a complete wardrobe of rat-skin clothes. I was the envy of all my classmates. Where was I? Oh yes, in St. Petersburg. God, it was cold. And this is in July? It made me angry to think that here was I and there was the Tsar. If fate had been different, it would have been the other way around. And he would have been the one with the frostbitten right foot. God, the guilt, the axe, the hardness, the feet, the gambling, the cold, and the Tsar. In those days, we're talking about the late 1840s. Thinking was a criminal offense. Sedition, I think they called it. To cut a long story short, I was arrested, executed, then sent into exile in Siberia. God, it was even colder there. I would vent my wrath by punching holes in the sheets of ice. We didn't have blankets. And vowed that when the revolution came, I would not be found wanting. You must remember that this was all long before I discovered nihilism. Every time there was the chance of a pogrom, I volunteered. If I'd known, I would have joined the Tsar's secret police. But they were so secret that no one knew about them, not even the Tsar or the secret police. I was angry, cold and angry. If it hadn't been for the occasional pogrom, I truly believe I would have gone out of my mind. God, the guilt, the axe, the hardness, the feet, the gambling, the cold, the Tsar, the anger, and the pogroms. Exile in Siberia was no holiday. You didn't have the comfortable psychiatric unit like they do today. All we had to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner was salt. God, the jokes we would invent. Odjo Burnkin. Pass the salt. This salt isn't salty enough. That is our favorite. But God, the salt was salty. The cooks were given extra salt rations to invent new salt recipes. Still, it kept body and soul together. And as a diet, it was more nourishing than the starvation eaten by the ordinary serfs. It was also Russian salt, and not that tasteless Polish stuff. God, I think I would have rather gone on a hunger strike than eaten that tasteless Polish salt. Where was I? Oh, in Siberia. 3,000 miles away from the nearest axe shop, living on salt, hate, and temperatures 130 degrees below zero. And that was in bed. God, it was cold. All I could think about was the revolution, and when it came, I would not be found wanting, or in Siberia. When we weren't mining, eating, or joking about salt, I would subtly manipulate the conversation away from the fundamentally superficial questions, like why we were dying of starvation, disease, execution squads, round to a really big one. I was struck by the imperishable fact that when you take away men's freedom, dignity, individuality, when you reduce him to the level lower than that of an animal, when you suppress every instinct except that of survival, it was always big Theodore who got the lion's share of the salt ration. It made me think mostly about exes. Old Thpeak, for example, had rationalized his life exile as a mere random coincidence. His dagger in someone else's back. Don't you feel sorry? I'd ask him. Sure I feel sorry, he would reply. Sorry I'm here. God, he was stupid. When we weren't mining, eating, joking, or discussing the philosophical implications of salt, we would dance on it. God, the dancing, the wild dancing. We would dance until the guards came and shot a couple of thousand of us and told us to keep quiet. If it hadn't been for the dancing, I truly think I would have gone out of my mind. You can take so much. Then you just have to dance. We were idiots, spending the white night, gambling like devils in our house of the dead. Our crimes and punishment made us as brothers. All I think about now is the revolution. But when it comes, I won't be found wanting or dancing. God, big deal. Yes. The peace.
Hup!